And welcome back here to Live Now from Fox. I'm Andrew Kraft. So, like I said before the break, want to kind of tie a bow on this story that we have been following for now the last 2 weeks. Texas Democrats, they're ending a 2-week walkout today that stalled Republican efforts to redraw congressional districts as part of a national partisan brawl over President Trump's desire to reshape U.S. House maps to his advantage. Live picture there over the nighttime skyline of Austin, Texas. Now, the tit for tat puts the nation's two most populous states at the center of an expanding fight over control of Congress ahead of the 2026 midterm elections. So, like I said last week, it did seem like most of the attention was now focused on California rather than on Texas, where this conversation all began. Fox 7 Austin reporter Rudy Koski with his report.
A group of Democrats were seen gathering around ABIA around 11 o'clock Monday morning. Their charter flight back to Texas included a bus ride to downtown Austin. When they arrived at the state capitol, supporters cheered the Democrats as they walked into the Texas House, the same legislative chamber that they walked out of 2 weeks ago.
A quorum is present.
House Speaker Dustin Burrows, now with enough members to end the contentious quorum break, indicated it was time for some fence mending.
It will withstand this too, and what will remain is a chamber where the majority has the right to prevail and the minority has the right to be heard. That has always been the mark of a functioning Texas House.
Well, I really appreciate the bipartisan nature. Look, Texas Democrats have been under attack for the last 2 weeks, whether it was bomb threats at hotels people thought we were at. We've had members have their tires slashed in front of their homes. We had over 20 members receive pizzas that were unsolicited to their homes with the Minnesota shooter's name as the sender. So it's very concerning, and we need to calm down this harmful rhetoric.
Several Republicans told me the AWOL Democrats should at least pay the $500 a day fine that they accumulated. And the Speaker's welcome home speech didn't sit very well with Midlothian Republican Brian Harrison.
Conciliatory, you're right, that was the tone, but it's the exact opposite tone. Texans wanted actions, they wanted punishments. We got absolutely nothing.
Any regrets?
Absolutely not one regret.
Representative Tony Rose and her quorum-breaking colleagues were not allowed to leave the House chamber before going to a back room. There, they had to sign a document promising to return Wednesday when the House reconvenes. And plainclothes DPS troopers were also assigned to each Democrat to shadow them.
I think it's unnecessary use of state funds. I mean, we came back. You know, our colleagues know us. They know that, I mean, if we came back today, that we're here to work. You know, that was the first part of our strategy, and it's time to kick it off, just get the bill done, and then kick it over to the courts.
House Democrat Caucus Chairman Gene Wu explained why they're now in a rush to vote on a redistricting map that they originally tried to stop.
And the real issue remaining is this going to get to the court in time? Because the court has what's known as the newly created Purcell Doctrine that says if it's too close to electioneering, election times, that the court will say the map is unconstitutional, but it's too late to do anything about it. You can't hold it, you can't use this map next time, but you can use it this time.
All right, Fox 7 Austin's Rudy Koski with that report. We've been relying solely on Brad Johnson there at the Texan, senior reporter there. He joins me live yet again. Brad, thanks for being with us. So I was speaking to you offline, and I described this as somewhat of a anticlimax here. I only say that because the map was voted on out of committee. No one got arrested or had their seat vacated. There may have been lawsuits filed, but these Texas state Democrats, they came back today. Was it all worth it to them?
They sure seem to think so. They came in acting as, celebratory victors. They accomplished the two things they said they set out to accomplish, which was killing the first special session, which happened, and then getting California to redraw its maps and cancel out whatever Texas may gain in its mid-decade redraw. The other thing is, though, those things were already in motion when those demands were made. So was it really their doing, or was that already in the works? Overall, though, it has turned out the way we all knew this was going to turn out. Maybe that's just hindsight speaking, but The Republicans have the votes to pass the map. Democrats cannot stay out of the state forever. And ultimately, they were coming up on deadlines necessary to for Chairman Gene Wu mentioned the court deadlines there, but also California to get going on its own constitutional amendment. So I think, yes, anticlimactic is a good word to describe it, but also expected.
So we heard there in that soundbite in Rudy Koski's report from Gene Wu, kind of outlining what their next strategy play is going to be in the courts. So you indicated to me offline that this new congressional map, with some tweaks, will probably be passed in the full House by the end of this week. And it now seems like Democrats there in Austin, they're just going to sue to block it. Is that the next step here?
Yes, and in my opinion, that was their best chance from the very beginning on this, was to try and defeat it in court. And maybe that happens. You know, there's some questions about the validity of a couple districts, one outside of San Antonio and one outside of Houston, and whether they adhere to previous court precedent. But overall, this was always going to be a Republican win in Texas. But what Democrats are hanging their hat on is getting this to be a national conversation, which they succeeded in. And now we see this tit-for-tat redistricting fight across the country playing out.
Yeah, today, Democratic legislators introducing new California maps. It was the first official move toward the fall referendum that asks voters to override the independent commission's work after the 2020 census. So it does really seem like the ball is rolling, especially there in California. Is California stealing their thunder, or would they tout it, to your point, as a byproduct, a win for this whole debate?
California has attributed the basically trigger point of considering this to the House Democrats and them breaking quorum. I think this was, no matter if they broke quorum or not, if Texas moved forward with its own redraw, California would have done the same. The pressure from the national apparatus, Democratic Party, has been there, pretty heavily, as it has been on the Republican side. And you look at other states that are looking at doing this. Florida is, but also Indiana. Indiana's moving forward, it sounds like. And I just saw today that their whole congressional delegation openly endorsed this mid-decade redraw. That was something that didn't happen in the Texas congressional delegation, even though Texas was kind of the guinea pig for this. I think this is because this is just so naturally political. We're now starting to see the two sides go to their corners, and after this first fight, and there's no bridging the gap there. It's just a question of who can add what seats where, and then ultimately who can persuade more voters next cycle.
So I have in front of me a statement from Texas State Representative John Busey. He's a Democrat, saying the spark we lit in Texas has become a fire across the country. He says Texas Democrats have accomplished something extraordinary. By breaking quorum, we forced Governor Abbott to end the first mid-decade redistricting special session, sparked a national conversation on the importance of fair maps and representation, inspired Republicans in Congress to file legislation to end gerrymandering, and secured commitments from leaders in other states to nullify the GOP's efforts to rig the midterms. That's not entirely true, is it? Governor Abbott has called another special session, hasn't he?
He has, and that map is going to pass, and it's going to pass swiftly before the legislators get out of Dodge. I will say, Representative Busey is correct that they sparked this national conversation that penetrated, voters' minds in a way that redistricting hasn't before. If you look at polling, or just general conversations, few people had any interest or knowledge of what the intricacies of redistricting are. I will say, though, I have seen polling that showed it wasn't an overwhelmingly oppositional tone by voters, to a mid-decade redistricting. It mirrored basically partisanship. Republicans wanted to redistrict. Democrats did not want to redistrict. Independents were somewhere in between. So while they did make this a huge conversation and reach more voters and citizens than they otherwise would have, I don't think it yields the results that they are touting.
So a lot of this whole story was centered on the question, who's paying for it all? You and I have discussed the fines racked up by these lawmakers there. Do we know how much they're on the hook for, each one of them, in fines?
Well, it's $500 a day, so whatever that comes out to across 2 weeks. I don't have a total number, but it's going to be a lot of money. And we see Beto O'Rourke and his PAC giving the combination of caucuses $1 million. Wow. I imagine that a lot of that is going to go towards paying for this. We also see, national groups fronting some money as well, whether that's for their lodging expenses out of state or what have you. We'll see. The speaker has been very clear that he is tallying up all of this, not just fines, but costs for sending DPS troopers out to monitor members that are still in the state or investigate where members are out of state. So I imagine the speaker is going to put out a pretty hefty bill, and it'll be interesting to see who does actually pay for this.
Yeah, and then, Brad, just lastly, I mean, the threat of arrest by the FBI of all groups, at the end of the day, was that a toothless threat? No one was arrested.
Yeah, I think you could pretty much say it was toothless. Okay. There were arguments made in court or behind the scenes trying to assert the authority to do that, but obviously nothing was persuasive enough to get them to do anything about it. But also, you got to keep in mind, you run into if you can do this legally or not. That's not the only question. Is it worth it politically? Do you cede the ground by arresting these members, putting them in cuffs? You cede the political narrative ground to make it not worth it in the end, just to restore a quorum, when a quorum is going to be restored regardless. It's just a matter of a waiting game. So I think that's more the calculus that Republicans across the state and the country made.
All right, Brad Johnson there at the Texan. Follow him. You have such great insight and sources and reporting into this whole story, and we've been so grateful to you helping us make sense of this story throughout the last 2 weeks. Brad, thanks so much. Have a good night.
Thanks, Andrew.
Okay, in the meantime here, President Trump weighing in on Truth Social on this very debate, saying, take a look at this. Republican state legislators in the great state of Texas, which I love, and won big 3 times, including with 6.4 million votes in 2024, by far the most votes in history, just introduced a new bill for one big, beautiful congressional map, saying thank you to Governor Greg Abbott, Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, Speaker Dustin Burrows, and the Texas legislature for your great work, saying it is wonderful to see Republicans everywhere standing up to save our country. It is one of the most popular initiatives I have ever supported. Republicans love watching us fight for a great cause, saying please pass this map ASAP. Thank you, Texas. Make America great again. So the president weighing in on this debate. Remember, it was reported that Texas Republicans brought up this very notion of redrawing the map to add 5 more seats in their favor at the urging, at the direction of President Trump. That was one of the main claims their Democratic colleagues objected to, and that is why they issued this 2-week-long standoff in the first place, saying presidents like President Trump shouldn't be dictating orders to state legislators like Republicans in the Lone Star State to get a competitive advantage in the midterm elections with +5 House seats here. So it looks like this has all come to an end. If it picks back up, of course, we'll cover it here on Live Now from Fox.